Member for Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
I rise tonight at adjournment proceedings to follow up a question that I asked in the House back in October. Back in October, you'll recall that the House was seized with a number of tax-related issues. The Finance Minister was dealing with the backlash over the small business tax changes that he had recklessly and brought in the summer without much forethought. And we were also at that time becoming aware of the extent to which the Finance Minister was himself, after castigating small business owners all summer and talking about how business owners would use complex corporate structures to to reduce their taxes, when in fact this minister, it was then revealed through a complicated arrangement of a number of private numbered companies, was continuing to own shares in his publicly traded family business, Morneau Shepell, much to the surprise of everyone, including presumably his own Prime Minister. And around that time, Mr. Speaker, we also became aware that the Canada Revenue Agency, through a change that it had made to its approval process or assessment process for the disability tax credit, was rejecting a full 80% of applicants with type 1 diabetics. This in contrast to right up until May of 2017, where approximately 80% of applicants suffering from type 1 diabetes were approved. And so, on October 23rd, I asked the question that you can see from Hansard, and the answer that I got from the minister that day was just not adequate to what was to the question and to what was happening at that time. Mr. Speaker, the minister went on to at that time talk about being in the process of hiring nurses to assess DTC applications, and Mr. Speaker, that didn't really make any sense then, and it still doesn't make any sense now. If the agency was capable of processing DTC applications without any problem for the, in particular for type 1 diabetics who had been applying for and being approved for 80% of the time for over 10 years, why all of a sudden in May of 2017 would a lack of nurses or a shortfall of nurses employed by the CRA have anything to do with what was going on? Subsequent events have revealed that this is nonsense. This was really a matter of the minister and or employees in the CRA simply deciding to make it more difficult and to raise the bar for eligibility for type 1 diabetics. And so here we are. This is a government that has gaping holes in its budget, that has an out-of-control spending problem, and will go after any low-hanging fruit for additional revenue, including pursuing type 1 diabetics, single parents. We saw and heard, and we talked again last week about retail and restaurant employees. Just any sort of angle to generate more revenue when it's really a spending problem and a case of misplaced priorities government-wide, made all the more bitter over the hypocrisy of the Finance Minister himself.